So, there's this guy named Lee, and him and Early Kyler have a debt. And the debt has to do with Kilra, of all places. They made this fucking guy, Lee. He's a pretty good clone. The thing is, Kilra has a different system of monetary dispersion than humans do. Not humans in general, but let's just say humans in this case, even though it's not. Where we don't see a way you go hungry, some races do. And this is just a basic idea. You understand how this works already, but not near Kilra. There's always food. Now, they consider your labor to be basically worthless. But these guys are designed basically to do labor. You understand that they, it works different because they're clones or whatever. So they made a couple good ones, and they were scientists or whatever. They're mostly using Kilra technology. It's not true in its entirety, but I must skip over that part at this point in time. So what happens is they don't really pay for room and board mostly. When they do make something good in Kilra, they just take it. They figure, I'll figure out if it's going to be good. It'll probably just break in 2 or 3 times anyways, and it's you won't be paid for it. And that's basically how it works. So in some ways it's like a worker's paradise, but it's not like that in theory. It's just like sort of like that. So you're gonna say, so what? Well, Early Kyler's system is very much about labor for money. Even though his clones are basically his slaves in some way, that's not the way he pervades society. Is that it's all built around the facility that a man's day's labor has value. And the reason is because when they built this thing long ago called the Millicarbica, it was like a giant cathedral. It wasn't a spaceship, but it was big enough to be a spaceship or whatever. It was on this flat rock, and they decided they were going to take off one day. They said, let's put some engines on it and take off. And it did, and it took the bottom of this rock with it. It broke away in some way. I can't imagine how it went, but this is the story they tell. And ever since then, they've been called the Flat, because there's this flat rock underneath this sort of moon lander that they built. It was gigantic. It was probably the size of a whole city, of towers of cities, to make one sort of moon lander looking thing. So what happens is when he says you're gonna do this, he says I'll give you this, because otherwise you won't want to do it. That's the general idea he has. His clone men have a spec, which is this whole long idea of how they get IDO, which is basically once you've learned how to sow the grain, you're kind of okay. And you milk the cow, and you do the cattle. And once you're doing granary work, you're sort of worth something. When it goes past there, when you're doing lumbering and sawmilling and stuff like that, he goes, well, now you're actually worth something to somebody else. So if I don't pay you, someone else might. And then I will lose a valuable guy because I already trained you a little bit. So he believes in monetary compensation for labor because of this, because of his own practices and idealisms. It makes sense to me. It works different on Kilra, right? They don't think much of the outside on Kilra. They're pretty much, yeah, we're the best. It's pretty much how it works. And it is what it is. Nobody really ever invades Kilra for various reasons, but it is what it is. They have a high opinion of themselves. Their shit doesn't stink, I guess. It's sort of like dog, but dog shit pretty much stinks rancidly, and dog isn't smart enough to know it or whatever. There's a couple of dog scientists or whatever that are, super intelligent, quote unquote, but it is what it is. Different world. So they're on the new moon Kamesi Kawaka Archie, which is like the 33rd one or whatever. And they are on there for a long time. And Early is doing all the grain work because that's like his thing. These guys are working on computers or whatever. So it comes up one day. He says, I've been feeding you for a long time. You ever intend on paying me for all the food I give you? He's like, I thought we had some sort of a deal with the Uppies or the Tudamakas who ran that arc. He said, oh, no. He's like, if I cut you off right now, they'll probably kill you. I understand that. A couple of you are kind of looking plump. He goes, yes, I'll admit I probably eat more than my fair share, but I just thought there was some kind of a deal. He's like, oh, no. They never brought it up to me either. They knew this is what I would be doing, and I assume they used it to their advantage in some way, but you see what the point is, that I do like to be paid for my work. These men have been laboring in this way for quite a few years out in the sun while you guys have been inside there on your little desktop notepads, and they were called Arc of Arcs at the time. They were like this drawing tablet they only had on that motherfucker, and they're actually pretty good, and they did a lot of contact stuff on there, which is it's not like computery stuff, but it's more like H and D. You guys don't have H and D. I don't know what to compare it to. I'll just say it was like architectural easels, and they had something like that set up. So whatever. Anyways, like our research is worth a lot. We can't sell it to you though. It's already sold to Kilra. And he goes, I don't know what to do. We don't have anything except for our new tech, and all of this is pretty much already sold to Kilra. And he goes, I don't know what to do. He goes, well, you better start figuring it out, because we're tired of just sending you sacks of grain and fruit and all this shit, and you don't send us nothing. He's like, no, I see what you mean. I feel stupid. He says, I'm glad you said that, because I feel stupid. He's like, I can't believe that they don't stipend you in some way, and that. And he thought about it. He said, I want to think about this for a minute before I talk anymore. I don't want to make a mistake. He goes, yep, you're right, you are. He said, I'll be back in a week or two. I hope you have something for me then. I want to keep coming back every week like a tax collector now, because you see it the way I say it, and that's the way I see it. He goes, all right, I'll consider it. I'll think about it. He goes, okay, you're already pretty far in arrears now, though. I just want you to be aware. He goes, all right, I get it. I'll contact Kilroy. He's like, well, that's the one thing I don't want you to do. He says, why's that? He's like, because I don't want to be in a fight here when I'm on the ark. He's like, oh, I have to know what to do. I feel like a jackanini now. I didn't know that they were going to be screwing me over like this on this ark. He's like, if you haven't figured out you're on the ark because you're on the borderline of extinction, you're a little bit slow. He's like, no, I didn't. I know that there were other wars, but we've never been at war over there. He says, is that right? He says, yeah, there's never been any war over in Kilrod, not for a couple hundred years, long before we were made. He's like, not even on the outskirts. And he goes, God damn it, I've been at war 13 fucking times since the fucking Messaminicardians invaded a nearby system. They weren't long skirmishes, but my men took a pretty heavy beating, and I've developed all these techs. I had to borrow buy tech, and I'm on this thing because they're thinking of getting rid of me because I'm willing to fight for my own style. And he said style, and nobody's sure why he said style, but that's his style, I guess. Anyways, so I think I know where he's coming from, but those guys were different than he was, and they would take away his building of a future way from him when he was a fledgling to it in some way, because I don't know, that was like the Clone War era, if you will. The design. They didn't like the way other people were building clone armies or clone facilities in general, so some of them started taking each other out, and that's the general synopsis of what that era was like. But that's not what it was like at all. It was the most cloak and dagger shit you can imagine. For the most part, they don't say it like that, but I know that's what it was like, because this one guy wrote a really long book about it, and it's called like the Holocaust of like the Conacher, and he describes how this one guy from near Kilra went on a spending spree, and by the time he got to the end of his spending spree to buy all this crap that the new clowns were making, he said, I had seen like 58 wars. I don't even know what they were doing. They ignored me because I just came to buy stuff. They're like, glad you're here. I could use the money right now. And all this. And he's like, his tale's quite interesting, but it's not a good tale if you're trying to figure out what's going on. But he knew a lot of stuff that was going on. He said, it's the mystical Curiticaticuts, just like the ones that early saw. But these ones were different. There were two of them, and these guys were green, and the ones he saw were orange or blue or something. I can't remember. And they said that those guys did the whole thing from the beginning to the end, and it's because of them that basically the Clone Wars started, and everyone was an arc. And there's just too few reports, more or less, that are of that scale. And I mean, when you think about it, the wars were basically with clone armies. They were pretty big wars. They weren't like small skirmishes. They were big wars now. So it's a different sort of an era. So it's hard to put it all together sometimes. But that's what generally people see. They see it as the stupidest sort of a thing, and they just see those two as who they were. Anyways, let me get back to the main story here. So Lee, basically, he goes and talks to the up. He's like, "Are we supposed to have food?" He goes, "Oh yeah, we have food here." He pulls down this slide, and like a bucket of soup comes out. The guy takes one taste of it, and he goes, "We've been getting the food from early. I didn't know we were supposed to be paying him. How come you didn't tell us about the bucket of soup?" And he goes, "It's soup? I thought it was plurba." He goes, "What is this called?" He's like, "It's soup. It may be plurba." He's like, "I don't know. I can't believe you guys never came and got none." He's like, I didn't know we were supposed to come in here and get it." He's like, "Why don't you ask?" He says, like, we're getting our stuff from early because he was our neighbor. I thought there was some sort of thing worked out, and they were supposed to get something from you." He's like, "Oh, no. These guys were known to be kind of absent-minded, but this is like a huge gap. Do you understand what I'm saying? And these guys were already on for like 28 years or something at this point in time, quote unquote. So the guy's like, "Well, he says I owe him some money." He's like, "You may." He's like, "But we don't have money at Kilra, where I'm from. We've almost never dealt with any currency. We understand currency, but how are we supposed to get it here?" The guy's looking around. He's like, "Maybe you better stick to soup." And he goes, "Yeah, it's plurba." He's like, "No, it's not. It's soup now. Soup sounds better than plurba." Plurba's pretty good, actually. It's not too bad, but let's just say if you eat it every day, you will get sick. That's all I have to say about it. It's on the subject. Because it has rima in it, and rima is not really good for people. It's good for other animals, but it's not really good for people. It'll make you sick if you just eat plurba for a long time. I just want you to be aware of that. So these guys clearly were not looking at this whole thing right, and everyone said that they had been affected by the weapon worse than the Mandalorians had, because they have really big fucking ears inside of their craniums, which do not have like an upper skull or whatever. Like, they were fucked up from that shit. So nobody's sure what was going on there the entire time. They're only on it for 2 more years. He says, "Early, I'll figure something out. I'll pay you at some point." So he says, "You better." So Early comes up with this roundabout number of like $58 or something. And he sends him the bill, and he goes, "Okay, well, I'll figure it out. Doesn't too unreasonable." He's like, "Oh, good. I like it. Good. All right." And so they put them on the Nukaka. And the Nukaka, everything was free, basically. But all you had to do was sit at a stand and pull a lever and make the machine run. And everyone said, why doesn't it just run? They said, because when something breaks, it doesn't break the whole machine. And they go, okay, fine, great. So they're all pulling their levers now. Early's guys are fucking praising God. They don't have to be out in the sun no more. They said it was super, super duper hot on that one. And no one else had to put up with that shit. But then they said, oh, fuck, I got some money coming. I mean, I'm on Easy Street now. This ain't so bad. After that, they went to the quote-unquote Juicimica, which was the precursor to not the Super Collidica, but the Kolakistavatica, which is basically, it's like the Super Collidica in a way I can't quite explain. And so, let me think here. They take this debt money and they don't go to Kilraw. They said, we got to figure this out, otherwise we might be in trouble on the Ark. And they say, I know what to do. I've developed a gun. He goes, okay. He's like, I can send it out to this guy. This is my guy here. And he can sell it. And by the time we get off of this Ark and go on to the other one, we'll have the money and we won't accumulate more debt. He says, we're accumulating debt. He's like, yeah, that's natural. I already talked with the guy about it. What guy? The guy here on the Nukica. He says, why? Because he signed a debt note to us. I went, God damn it. I can't believe we're going into debt now. The debt hasn't quadrupled or anything, but it's a pretty high number. So I'm continuing this story. When they got off the Nukico and went on I call it the Kovaco, and they got on the Kovaco, they were like, fuck yeah, this thing's way better. At first they were both on the Earth, and then they moved Lee to the other one. It was called Slacko. Slacko was a different type of a planet than the Earth, but it wasn't too dissimilar. And most people liked Slacko better than the Earth at that time because they knew the Earth was fucked up. Nobody could quite explain why the Earth was fucked up, but they knew something was going on there that wasn't going on Slacko. And so they go, okay. And then they brought in Miklo. And Miklo was even fucking worse than Earth. And they go, whatever the fuck is wrong with that one? They brought in two more, Jack Lakolka and Super Maklo. Super Maklo exploded not too long after they brought it in. Nobody knows why that happened. What would I call it? Jacklo or whatever. That one, they had this huge outbreak of like a poison rash, and they killed half of the guys on it. And then they used the machine to bring half of them back, and they didn't have the rash, but they didn't have their memories anymore. And everyone said this is like a problem because now they're not programmed the right way. So they tried to have them disenfranchised or released, but most of those guys went on to be like fucking lunatics. And they put them into asylums and stuff and tried to figure out what was wrong with them, and nobody could figure it out. He said they weren't ever brought back. They brought in some guys from outside they were trying to get rid of in secret, and that's a different story. And they ended up on Slacko, and they said that's the whole problem they got now, is because some of these guys interwedded them at some point, and now they have this huge problem where they can tell which ones they are, and they go, man, I fucking can't stand that they're in our family and shit. So that's the whole thing going on here. So it comes up one day in like the Supreme Court, basically in 1910. He's like, you owe Early this much money? Lee's like, yeah. He's like, we're about to seat you, Lee. We're about to give you mansions and guns, and you haven't paid him this money. He's like, it's a long story. He's like, I can't give it to you. And he lost his mind. He's like, what do you mean you can't give it to me? We all get this. He's like, I can't allow you to have it. Everyone said that this is some kind of a lie somebody made up. Everyone said it was Early, but Early would have been paid. So it wasn't Early. Somebody told me it was some guy called Galactica that lived up in the sky, and he was trying to create problems on the Earth because he knew a way they knew something, and they said it would fucking ruin his future or something. It was the craziest fucking story I ever heard when I heard about Galactica. I said, wow, I never heard of that before. So anyways, so what happened? When they didn't get it, he said, I'm going to move you out here to southern Roni, and you guys are going to live here for a while, and then eventually I'm going to just put you into the workforce. You guys are going to have to work from now on. It's fine. At least it's in America. Land of opportunity. It's like, oh, you won't be thinking that for long. But we'll see. So, by the time the Second World War came around, most of these guys were fairly affluent, but a lot of them got drafted. They were livid when they got drafted, I'll tell you that much. And they were like, we're going to lose all our good men. And so that's why the guys on Slacko, now this is a long time ago, they started nuking parts of where they got sent out to in Korea. But it wasn't Korea then, it was called Super Lacto. And Super Lacto was the fucking worst guys. They were fucking lunatics out of Super Lacto. They would just take babies and throw them, whatever you can imagine. They would have hatchet duelings with random people that were buying groceries. They were fucking crazy. So anyways, they started nuking them from Slacko, and then they got fucking pissed off about it. They're like, we're supporting our troops. He's like, you can't support our troops. They're our troops. He's like, no, those are our people. We're supporting our people. He goes, you can't do that. It's fucking illegal. He's like, why? Because now you're at war, and you can't be at war in our arc. He's like, you're at war right now. What do you mean we can't be at war? You took away their money so early could... And then somebody realized something. They're on Slacko, and they're on the Earth. And no one could figure out why it was like that. And somebody's scratching their head, like me right now scratching his head. And they go, how do you guys on Slacko and on Earth? And the guy was like completely dumbfounded. It's like, I don't know, you didn't send everybody? He's like, no. It's like, how the fuck did this happen? And they knew it was like Lee because they speak a very specific language, only they speak. And there's like, no one's gonna crack this code. He's like, we barely even use a code. He's like, what the fuck? Some of them do this thing called whispers, and most people don't know what it is, but only they really do it. Nobody else has ever really done it. Even when Early lived by him, nobody really does whispers except for them. And they go, well, why were they there? And they said it's because of Galactica. No one can explain how this happened, but apparently they had been doing time travel on the Earth for so long. There was some kind of an infinite time loop going on, and stuff would just fucking fall out of place sometimes. And that's basically what the whole story comes out to be, is this exact thing. So you're gonna ask, what happened to the gun? The gun never went out. They said, what happened to the gun? The gun seemed to have disappeared, but I know where a copy of it is, but it's kind of outdated. And so I was like, well, somebody said he finally sent it out one day, and the guy came back with a meager, paltry amount. He said he sold a lot of them, but the guy refused to pay him. He goes, okay, I'll get to that when I get to that. So he's thinking about calling Kilraw now to tell him about these guys, that they fucked him out of this gun. And he says, if we don't give the gun to Kilraw, they'll be fucking pissed. He's like, well, they don't really use guns that much, and this is... We'll say the whole thing to him. He's like, no, then they'll be mad at Early. He's like, no, we should handle this as men on this arc. And he's like, well, okay. He's like, what about a video game? Don't we make video games pretty good? He's like, no, they're mediocre compared to the shit out there. They have like the Okama Game Sphere's precursor was called like the Lictio. The Lictio probably wasn't out then, but the one that came out before that was called the Slickstiostoklaticus. And it was pretty fucking wild for the time. It was fucking fun, actually. God damn it, where was I? It's like 1970. Lee gets a call in there. He's like, I want you to pay Early right now, because he's got other stuff to pay for, and he has a war debt now. He's like, I don't have no money. He's like, this guy brought us a meager sum for this gun we sold out in the sea. He's like, how'd you get out to the sea? He's like, we get to sea sometimes to see the way. He's like, oh yeah, me too. He goes, okay, wow, you actually got someone to do that for? He's like, yeah. He's like, man, I should do that. So anyways, like, that ship wasn't completely derelict, but it had a lot of problems. The Kovaco, it had a lot of problems with it. And they said it was just all because of Galactica, and that was like the carte blanche, how they blamed everything then. And nobody, and the two were around then, but nobody ever saw the two. They didn't even live in the underground then. I think they lived like west of Germany in the Uzbek mountains where nobody lived ever, and they didn't even know where they were, and they had lived there forever, and they had this huge city that was sort of in the ground, but it was above the ground. It was crazy, and it was the most beautiful fucking city, like not quote unquote. And it was large stone tower. It was almost all stone too. That was the craziest part. And when somebody finally stumbled across this when he's mountain climbing, he's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "We're the two. We've been here since the fucking very beginning of the earth. We crash landed here like in the Stone Age." He's like, "Oh, I know you guys are here." He's like, "Yeah, this is our place. What do you think?" He's like, "It's pretty nice." So, anyways, this is about that same time. I was probably in the 30s, maybe. When they found out about the two, they went over there and said, "Do you have any, can you make us a loan so we can pay early?" He's like, "Well, what are you going to give me?" He's like, "Well, we got stuff, but it's not here now." And somebody said this wasn't even Lee, and he's like, "Oh, I'll think about it." And so one day Lee gets a call. He's like, "Yeah, I'll give you the money to pay early." He's like, "I don't remember asking for money. And maybe it's just one of your subordinates." "Well, this is a one-time chance, man. You take the money, or I'm not going to call back." He goes, "Well, I'm going to ask you to not call back because I don't like making mistakes." So it turned out to not be his subordinate. Nobody can figure out why this happened. They figured it was Galactica again. So it's whatever. You understand. I know this story's winding on and not making sense anymore, but that's how it went. So we're on the 33rd layer of bullshit right now. And they invent the Quokka. The Quokka was like a land ship. And it was pretty big. And it ran on 0 point energy, which wasn't nuclear energy. And they weren't allowed to have it. And they said, "Why can't we have something we make here?" I thought that's how this whole system works. It's Ryball and everything. And they say there's some things you can't have here. Every time they develop a new tech that's too outlandish, that would be something like we see out in the sea. You can't have. He's like, "This is basic compared to stuff out there." He's like, "Come on, man. This is like a ground flu." He's like, "Well, they don't like the look of it or something." He's like, "Fine, whatever." And so they had them in secret for a while. And they were like, you ever seen bumper cars? They had them like bumper cars for a while. When they found out they had those, man, they got so fucking pissed. They started putting them into cellars. And when they were put into the cellars, the guys on Slacko got fucking livid about it. They went crazy. Someone said that they had been slipping over from Slacko for a long time because they didn't like living with those other ones that were from whatever, where Korea is now. The super idiots. So basically, 2020, I want to say it was 2042, there was this huge war, and none of these people I talked about are involved in it. And they're all like, glad that's over. 10 years pass and there's another war. And they're like, we're going to get drawn into one of these. These people are fucking, they're mad about something we don't even know about. And it keeps on happening time and time again. So eventually Early's like, well, why don't you pay me? And it's literally like moments after he said this. They were back in the 1930s or something. He's like, if you don't pay me soon, I'm going to get mad, but not right now. And he disappeared for about a decade. And he came back. He said, you guys have my money? He's like, you know what? We actually brought up a collection. He's like, all right, hold on. I'll be right back. So he comes back with his boy. He's like, I want you to just put him in college. So they put this guy through college. He had an expensive college fund. He went to Harvard and Yale and everything. And he was quite pleased when he paid for this motherfucker. And they go, well, you're off the hook for right now, but I'm going to be back because I know you know that's like a penny to a pilch. He's like, yeah, we know. It was expensive, though. They go, yes, it was exceedingly expensive. I could not deal with it. He's like, I can't even look at that bullshit. I hate looking at giving no money for them stuffed shirts and all that. So they were okay for a while. Somebody said they finally blew Slacko up, but Slacko didn't go nowhere. No one could explain why they said it. And it was stuff like that was going on. And then they finally decided to clan that arc. When they said to clan that arc, they knew what they were talking about. They're going to take this one, they're going to dismantle it, they're going to make one that looks like it and put everything on there. And they said they did this in such secrecy, nobody knew what happened. And just like that, Slacko was back, and there were two of them. And somebody said, they did it. And somebody said, what do you mean they did it? He said, they did it. Who? The ARC guys. And they said, what did they do? They killed everyone off of Slacko, and they didn't see it. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Nobody could figure out who this guy was or how his information came, but it was like everybody knew it. And they said it was stuff like that that was happening all the time, and it sort of just ceased after that. Like that was the last incarnation of it. And it had been going on for like this guy that whispered very, very loudly to everybody. And they said it wasn't Lee, it was somebody that was copying their style and all this shit. So it comes around to today. Early wants his money. They still don't have that much money. They put all their money in their savings accounts. All this other stuff. Now they're not being paid for anything. You know what's going on today. Nobody's getting paid for shit. Nobody can sit. Nobody can get all this, right? And they still didn't get paid for sitting. And somebody brought it up once. It's like, where did that money go to? And the Supreme Court doesn't know. They lost it somewhere. It went to the space program or something. They don't know. And they said, wasn't that still our money? Wouldn't that be accumulating? And they said, God fucking damn it. So somebody tried to find it and he couldn't find it. And they said, how much was it? And they showed him a $sign amount. He says, what 1910 was it? He's like, God damn, that was a long time ago. Oh, the guy keeps calendar. He comes back a year later. He says, do you still want to know what 1910 it is? It was an identical guy, and he wasn't the same guy, and he didn't remember the conversation. And they said, this is fucking crazy. So 1940 comes around, there ain't no war. 1950 comes around, there ain't no war. When 2070 came around, there's the nuclear holocaust to end all nuclear holocausts. And it was about 2084. It all went back to 1930 again. And they all lost their fucking final banana peel. They said, we ain't ever getting off of this motherfucker. And that's when somebody said, stop it right here. We'll figure it out later. And they froze the entire system and they put it on this micro processor where everything moves at 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of time. And they said, we'll figure it out later. And like 800 years passed. They're like, I think we got to figure it out. And then the super collider came into the picture and they got dumped on that file. And they said it was still in some time, kind of a time loop. And so they put their system in there alongside of it in time. And that's sort of what's going on. So Lee owes Early all this money. And so I looked it up and it's only like 28,000 something D. And I'm like, well, I got a couple K I can sell. I can trade a K to Amadog, get that money and send it through there just so we don't gotta have this pointless war, because all this other shit's riding on fucking stupid town and these little baby people that are crying about fucking drugs. Maybe we can just jump this one fucking hoop and get out of here. And I sent that down the pipe and that seemed to go okay. So maybe we have a happy ending, but here we are, right? Did that help in all this shit? Who knows?